There are moments in football where something happens and you genuinely have to stop and read the news twice just to make sure you understood it correctly. This is one of those moments. A player receives a red card in a World Cup knockout match. The rules say, clearly, in black and white, in a circular distributed to every single participating federation months before the tournament began, that a red card means an automatic one-match suspension. No appeal process, no gray area. Automatic. Every team in this World Cup was told the same thing before a single ball was kicked. And then, less than 96 hours later, that suspension was gone. The player was cleared to play. And Belgium, the federation that was set to face that player in the very next match, found out through media reports rather than any official communication from the organization that governs the sport. This is a story of what happened with Balogun, the United States striker, his red card against Bosnia and Herzegovina, FIFA's extraordinary reversal, and why Belgium's response has sent shockwaves through the entire football world that are going to be felt long after this tournament ends. Let's start with the incident itself, because understanding the original red card is essential to understanding everything that came after. The 64th minute of the United States versus Bosnia and Herzegovina in the round of 32. Balogun and Bosnian defender Tarik Muharemovic were both challenging for the ball, the kind of physical contest that happens dozens of times in every single football match at this level. The referee on the field, watching the action in real time, didn't consider the contact worthy of a card at all. No whistle. Play continued. Then VAR intervened. The video review official examined the footage and sent the referee to the monitor. And in slow motion, you could see Balogun's foot land on the back of Muharemovic's ankle as they both went for the ball. Here's where things get interesting from a refereeing perspective, because experts in the game were divided almost immediately. Multiple referee analysts pointed out that VAR protocol specifically states that slow-motion footage should not be used to evaluate the severity of contact for red card decisions, because slow motion distorts the apparent speed and force of a challenge in ways that can be deeply misleading. What looked deliberate at quarter speed looked accidental at normal speed. Balogun himself was clear that he had no intention of fouling his opponent. Pochettino, the United States coach, was clear that it was never a red card in his view. Christian Pulisic, watching from the pitch, called it extremely harsh. But the card stood. Balogun was sent off, and the United States, who won the match 2-0 regardless, knew they were heading into a round of 16 against Belgium without their leading scorer of the tournament, a player who had contributed 3 goals across the group stage and round of 32, and who represented one of the most dangerous offensive weapons in the American squad. That should have been where the story ended, in footballing terms. Controversial red card, harsh but within the scope of VAR decisions that referees have made throughout this tournament, player suspended for the next match, life goes on. The rules were the rules, and every federation in this competition had been told exactly what those rules were. But then, something happened that nobody in this tournament expected. FIFA's disciplinary committee announced on the Sunday before Monday's match that Balogun's automatic one-match ban was being suspended under Article 27 of the FIFA Disciplinary Code, replaced with a probationary period of 1 year. The player was eligible to play against Belgium. The suspension, which had been described as automatic and non-appealable, was gone. FIFA's statement cited Article 27, which gives judicial bodies the power to fully or partially suspend the implementation of a disciplinary sanction. The probationary condition attached means that if Balogun commits another infringement of similar nature and gravity during the 1-year period, the original suspension would be immediately enforced alongside any new penalty. Now, let's go through why Belgium's response was so forceful, because the Royal Belgian Football Association didn't just disagree with the decision. They built a legal and procedural case against it that is meticulously documented and extremely difficult to dismiss. Their first argument was the clearest. Article 66.4 of the FIFA Disciplinary Code states explicitly that a red card automatically results in a suspension for the team's next match. Article 10.5 of the FIFA World Cup 2026 competition regulations repeats this in even more specific terms for this tournament. And the RBFA pointed out that these rules had been applied consistently to every single red card issued in this World Cup before this moment. Every other player sent off in this tournament served their automatic one-match ban. No exception was made for anyone else. Belgium asked a straightforward question. Why was this case different from every other case that came before it? Their second argument was procedural, and this is where the statement from Belgium became particularly striking. The RBFA did not learn of FIFA's decision through an official communication from FIFA. They learned about it through media reports. Think about that for a moment. A federation that was directly affected by the decision, whose upcoming match was fundamentally altered by it, whose right to prepare for that match depended on knowing which players they would be facing, had to find out through journalists rather than through the organization that made the ruling. When Belgium sent a letter to FIFA requesting a copy of the decision, an explanation of the process that had been followed, and setting out their position regarding the applicable regulations, the response they received was extraordinary in its own right. FIFA replied that Belgium's letter constituted an appeal, that a judge had been appointed, and that the RBFA had only a few hours to complete that appeal process. No information about the actual decision was provided, no explanation of the reasoning, no copy of the ruling, just a deadline and a notification that the clock was already running. The third element of Belgium's statement was perhaps the most damaging in terms of what it reveals about how this situation was handled. At every match coordination meeting throughout this World Cup, one of the standard sections of FIFA's presentation covered the automatic suspension of players who receive red cards. Belgium confirmed that this section had been included in all 4 previous meetings before each of their matches in this tournament. The meeting before the United States game had that section removed. When Belgium asked FIFA, both verbally and in writing, why that section had been taken out, they received no response. Belgium's coach, Rudy Garcia, didn't hold back when he faced journalists. He said he didn't know that at the World Cup, the 5th of July was actually the 1st of April. He said Belgium weren't defending just their own federation or their national team. They were defending football, its ethics, and its integrity. That's a significant statement from a head coach hours before a knockout match. It reflects how seriously the Belgian football community viewed what had happened. UEFA went even further. Europe's governing body issued a statement saying the decision crossed a red line. They said football relies on rules as the basis for fair, honest, and transparent competition, and that in this case, the rules were not open to interpretation. When the certainty of rules is no longer guaranteed by its guardians, they said, the integrity of the game is at stake, and the credibility of a competition is undermined. They described their reaction as disbelief at an unprecedented, incomprehensible, and unjustifiable decision. Now, here's the bigger picture that this situation opens up. Because the Balogun case doesn't exist in a vacuum, it's the second time in this tournament that Article 27 has been used to clear a major player from a suspension that would otherwise have kept them out of significant matches. Cristiano Ronaldo received a 3-match ban last November for a red card in a World Cup qualifier against the Republic of Ireland. The FIFA Disciplinary Committee subsequently reduced that ban to 1 match served plus a probationary period, keeping Ronaldo eligible for Portugal's World Cup group stage matches. At the time, that decision attracted some attention, but was processed relatively quietly because it occurred before the tournament began, and Ronaldo did serve at least 1 match of his original ban. Balogun's situation is different in one crucial respect. The original red card came inside the tournament itself, in a knockout round match with the player's eligibility for the very next game directly at stake. The decision to clear him was made and announced the day before that next game. Belgium had minimal time to adjust their preparation. The reversal happened in a compressed time frame that made it impossible for the process to feel anything other than rushed. Think about what this means for the sporting logic of the World Cup going forward. If Article 27 can be applied to suspend an automatic 1-match ban that the tournament regulations specifically described as non-appealable, then what does automatic actually mean in this competition? What certainty do teams have about disciplinary consequences for their opponents? If a red card in a knockout match can be cleared under probationary conditions less than 24 hours before the next game, how does any federation plan around the disciplinary situation of their upcoming opponents? Belgium's statement was explicit about this uncertainty. They said that as of the moment they released their statement, they had still not received any decision or any explanation from FIFA regarding the matter. They had no alternative but to challenge the players' eligibility for the upcoming match, and they committed to continuing the fight in the coming hours, days, and months in defense of what they called the fundamental principles of ethics, fair competition, and the interests of football as a whole. From a purely footballing perspective, the impact on the match itself was significant. Balogun had been the United States' most dangerous forward in the knockout rounds, his movement in behind defenses and his ability to finish with both feet giving Pochettino's side a dimension that was harder to replace than most forwards of his profile. Belgium had spent the days between the Bosnia match and their round of 16 fixture preparing for a United States side without him. The reversal of that suspension meant that preparation had to be partially discarded within hours of kickoff. Rudy Garcia made it clear that the timing bothered him as much as the substance of the decision. His team found out through media reports. They had a matter of hours to process the information and adjust their tactical approach before one of the biggest matches in their World Cup campaign. That's not a hypothetical inconvenience. That's a concrete sporting disadvantage created by the manner in which the process was handled, independent of whether the underlying decision itself was right or wrong. This matters because the credibility of a World Cup rests more than anything else on the perception that the rules apply equally to every team. When one team believes, with documented evidence to support that belief, that a process was followed that treated them differently from how it would have treated any other federation in the same position, the tournament's integrity becomes a question rather than a given. Belgium's statement was careful to say that regardless of the sporting outcome of the match, they were deeply saddened by the course of events. That phrase, regardless of the sporting outcome, tells you exactly how seriously they viewed the principle at stake. What do you think? Does FIFA's use of Article 27 in this situation undermine the credibility of the World Cup's disciplinary process, or was it a legitimate application of a rule that exists for exactly this kind of borderline decision? Can Belgium's formal challenge, which they've committed to pursuing in the coming months, actually produce a meaningful change to how FIFA handles disciplinary decisions at future tournaments? And which team do you think ultimately benefits more from the situation heading into the match in Seattle? The United States with their full attack available, or Belgium with an entire country and European football's governing body standing behind their sense of injustice? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss our coverage of tonight's match and everything that follows, and like this video if this story matters to you.